Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cass, and today we're going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of February. I'm running a little behind on my wrap-ups, and I had flirted with the idea of doing January and February together, but I decided there was too many books and I like to yap about them. I didn't want the video to get too long, so I'm just going to make a separate video for the January reads and probably get that out to you guys next week. But today we're going to talk about February. Okay, a couple of things before we get started. One, it's super gray, cold, rainy day, and there is hardly any natural light. So I had to turn on my ring light, so apologize for the lighting. Also, I have my kids, and I was hoping for a quiet moment to film today, but alas, that is not going to happen. So if you hear background noise, just know my kids are here. It is what it is. This is my very real life. So with those aside, let's get into my February reads. Just to do a little overview, I'm looking at my little book journal down here. So if I'm looking down, that's why. I read a total of, so I picked up and read 11 books, but I only finished 10. One was a DNF, but I will talk about it. I had one 5-star read. I had a few that were really close to a 5-star. I am being very picky with my 5 stars this year. Also, if you follow me on Goodreads, sometimes when it was really close to a 5-star, I would just round up and mark it as 5-star. But I want to really track what my actual 5 stars are, so I'm not going to do that any longer. I'm only going to be giving it 5 stars if it was actually 5 stars. Nonetheless, a few of these were really, really good. I just didn't get that wow, 5-star feeling, but objectively and subjectively, they were really good. So let's talk about these books. I'm not going to go into depth on all of them. There's a few that I'll give you a little background on and some quotes that I really liked. So let's get into it. The first book that I read in the month of February was The Second Death of Locke. Now, I picked this up not even realizing how popular it had become on booktok and booktube. And so I didn't really know anything about it. I was attracted to the cover. I really love fantasy. I also really like medieval times, that kind of fantasy. My boyfriend is into sword fighting, and so the knight costume with the sword and all of that drew my attention. And so that's why I picked it up. I had a good time. I know there's been a lot of mixed reviews about this book. I know a lot of people were disappointed. Again, I went into it with very low expectations. I hadn't really heard anything about it, so probably had a much better experience because of that. I felt like there were some plot holes that bothered me just a little bit. I have to admit that I've been very distracted this year, this month, but also just the whole year. In the US, there's so much going on. It has been so heavy and so distracting. And books they're helping me. They're my therapy, and they're healing me, and they're providing an escape for me. But all of these real current events are weighing very heavily on my heart and on my mind. And so I think it has affected the way that I have been reading, my ability to focus and to pick up on things. So I don't want to give away any spoilers in my wrap up, but what I will say is that, I felt like there was a plot hole. And also there was a little bit of that, they like each other, but they both think that the other one doesn't like them, It felt, it felt a little overstated. We're having insight into our female character's mind, and she is so certain that he does not feel about her the way she feels about him. But I'm not sure that what the author has written shows that to us. And so at some point it was kind of come on, this is too much, But all in all, I did enjoy the book. I could see this becoming a comfort read for me. I think I would reread it, knowing that it's not perfect and that it doesn't have to be perfect. But something about the storytelling, and I don't know, I really enjoyed it. It was a good time for me, but it didn't wow me the way that I was hoping. I definitely got a lot more satisfaction out of a book I read later in the month. Anyhow, all in all, I rated this book 4.25, and I would say it's very enjoyable if you like fantasy. It's historical fantasy setting. I think I really liked the world. I think that's what really drew me in. I think I was just really enjoying the setting. I think that was my favorite part of the whole book. So if you're going into it for just a little bit of escapism, I think you'll fully enjoy it. Okay, the next book I picked up was The Night Prince which is the sequel to The Wolf King. And this is a YA fantasy series with wolves and an enemies to lover type of vibe. I read the first book. I enjoyed it. I wasn't completely wowed by it, but I enjoy those YA fantasies because they tend to just draw me in, take me on a fun storytelling adventure. I don't have to think too hard about it. There isn't a whole lot of like complex detail that I have to pay attention to. My brain doesn't have to work very hard to follow the story and to enjoy the story. You know what I'm saying? That's what I go to a YA fantasy for. And it did that for me. So I'll talk more about that book in my January wrap up because I read The Wolf King in January. The second book took a complete pivot from the first book in that I felt like we left that YA easy to follow fantasy read and went into something that became a lot more complex. And I feel kind of torn about it because on the one hand, I love like epic fantasy. I love more complex worlds. I love really unique magic systems and worlds. So I enjoy that about the second book. But on the other hand, it feels like a complete departure from the vibes of the first book. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like we just went from typical YA fantasy or romantasy and went into something that could be considered more like new adult or a little bit higher fantasy with romance. That's my opinion. It kind of threw me for a loop. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the book. I'm not sure what that means for the series as a whole, but I will be picking up the third book when it comes out. And I rated this book a 4.5. So I actually did like it even better than the first book. Like I said, it just felt like a sharp turn from where we ended on book one. Like the feeling that I had about what genre I'm reading and what to expect. It was completely unexpected. You guys, I still feel so out of my element. Like I'm so not used to filming. Bear with me here. Bear with me. Okay. The next book I read was First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I have liked B.K. Borison books in the past. I've really enjoyed some of them, especially her holiday series. I loved Love Light Farms. So I thought I would give this one a try. I enjoyed it. It was a good like palate cleanser for me to kind of do something different, switch it up for my brain, give it a break before moving on to other books. I did listen to all of these books that I'm talking about, so I did enjoy the audiobook. I would recommend it if you haven't read it yet, I would recommend the audiobook. I thought that was a good experience for that particular book, and I really enjoyed it. I feel like at parts, somewhere in the middle, it got kind of slow for me and lost me a little bit, but I really enjoyed the beginning and I really enjoyed the end, and all in all, it was a good time. I gave it 4 stars. I will pick up B.K. Borison books in the future. I am undecided about picking up the sequel to this. Let me know if you're going to pick up the sequel to this book. I can't decide if I'm going to really worry about it or not, or I might just pick it up down the road, you know? Then I tried to pick up Helfyre, and because I received this duology, I think from the Arcane box, and the books are gorgeous. They're absolutely beautiful. But I started the book and I just wasn't really feeling it. I don't know if it was the writing. I don't know if it's the book. I don't know if it was my mood. Like I said, there's been a lot going on behind the scenes. But I decided to DNF it. I don't know if I'll come back to it. I don't know if it's a soft DNF or a hard DNF. I just realized that I wasn't into it. I wasn't really enjoying my time. I wanted to move on to a book that really was going to capture my attention. So that was the one book that I did not finish. But I did read a good probably 20% of it before I put it down. If you have read this duet, let me know if it's something, like if it's worth coming back to. It definitely gave me kind of dark romance vibes, which isn't really my thing anyway, or dark fantasy romance. But I've read a few that I liked and enjoyed, and I wasn't enjoying it at the time. So after that, I picked up The Traitor's Kiss, which is like another YA historical fantasy. I'm definitely in a historical fantasy moment right now. I mean, I've always loved them, but I'm like really eating them up right now. So I enjoyed that book. It's a YA. Again, super easy to follow, good storytelling. I believe it's a trilogy. I will probably pick up the rest of the books in the future at some point, but it wasn't a book that left me feeling like I had to read the second book. I needed to know what happened. And honestly, when I think back, I can't even really tell you what happened in that book. So yeah. So I ended up reading that book 3.5 because I enjoyed it. It was a good time, but it wasn't really memorable for me, you know? So I may or may not finish the trilogy. That is to be determined. Then I realized, you know what? I'm clearly not in a fantasy mood. I'm also not in a romance mood. I am not like loving, like they're good, but I'm not like loving any of the books I'm reading, and realized that I wanted to pick up a historical fiction. And right now, historical fiction is hitting the mark for me because of all of the political things happening here in the US. History repeats itself. It does. And reading these books about the past helps me make sense of what's happening now, helps me process my feelings and my thoughts about what's going on in my country. And it's real. Like, historical fiction is real. It feels tangible. It feels like I'm connected to the past. It's grounding for me. So I picked up The Lion Women of Tehran, which is written by Marjan Kamali, who also wrote The Stationery Shop, which is one of my favorite historical fiction books. It's a lovely story. If you haven't read it, I would absolutely recommend that book as well. But this book takes place in Iran, which is kind of poignant given that we just started a war with Iran. I would recommend reading this book now. It is very insightful into the culture there and what it's like for women who are living there. It's very oppressive for women, and we get a sense of that throughout this book. It's about two best friends that meet as children. They become lifelong friends, and we follow their friendship throughout their lives. Ellie comes from a wealthy background. She's led a life of privilege, and then her father dies, and suddenly her and her mom have to move to the poor area of the country and live in poverty, and it's a life they're not accustomed to. And there, Ellie meets Homa, who has lived there her whole life. Their family, that's where their family is from. That's where they've always been. And this family, they have beliefs that are not really safe to have in the country because Iran is being run by a fascist dictatorship. And anything that you believe opposed to that is basically illegal and puts you at risk. So this book starts in the 1950s. They're little girls in the 1950s. And we follow them clear up to present day. And throughout their friendship, we're seeing the country, how it's changing, the way that it oppresses women specifically. We watch how it affects these two girls from two different backgrounds and how the choices they make really end up defining their paths and their lives. Ellie ends up moving to the US with her husband for him to pursue a doctorate degree in New York. And we get to see her being an immigrant in New York City and what that was like. And Homa ends up staying in Iran and is fighting a fascist government and is kind of heading up these rebellions and is supportive of a revolution. And something happens between the two women before Ellie leaves for the United States. And they have kind of like a bit of a falling out, but throughout the book, we're not really sure what that is. It's not defined up front. It's something we find out later in the book, but it's a very important part of the book. We watch them as they reconnect after that falling out and see them rebuild their friendship. And throughout that rebuilding, we find out what actually happened to them and what kind of drove them apart and what is also bringing them back together. It's a very beautiful book. I love her writing. It's not too long. It's super easy to follow. The characters they feel so real. And I love the friendship aspect, but I also love how we get from the title alone, right? The Lion Women of Tehran. The focus of the book is how strong women are in society. And that even when women are oppressed or going through difficult times and fighting powers that are bigger than they are, how their strength shines through, how it shapes society, and how women coming together and fighting together really can make a difference. And yeah, there's so many little side stories throughout the book that are also important. It's amazing to me how much the author put into a book that size, because it's not very long. I want to say it's under 300 pages or just about 300 pages. But it is a book that will stick with me. It's characters that will stick with me. I loved it. I was feeling like it was 4.5 star all through the book. But then towards the very end, there's a reveal and it bumped the book up for me to 5 stars. Like absolutely, like really got me. Was like a plot twist. It was a plot twist I did not see coming. and it got me in the heart. It got me so good, you guys. I want to share a quote from it because I absolutely love this quote from the book. Just to give you an idea of the writing, it says, "While to our eyes waves appear suddenly on the shore, their abruptness is an illusion. Waves begin their journey thousands of miles out at sea. They accumulate shape and power from winds and undersea currents for ages. And so when you see the women in Iran screaming for their rights, please remember that the force and fury of our screams have been gathering power for years." So good, so inspiring. Highly recommend picking up this book right now. It is extremely relevant to what is going on in the world. And this book, as I said, was 5 stars. This ended up being my only 5-star for the month. That was like a full 5 stars. Yeah, so that was an excellent book. Very happy that I finally picked that one up. After that, I picked up The Book of Lost Hours, which I think I found this book just shopping at Barnes & Noble. Like I love to go to Barnes & Noble or other bookshops and just kind of shop around old school, like finding books the old school way. We're so controlled by the algorithms these days, and I think it means that we end up missing out on a bunch of amazing authors and books and stories. And I miss the old days of just going to the bookstore and looking around and picking up books randomly and reading about them or being attracted to their cover and picking up books that way. So I still like to go and do that. I don't always buy all of the books I find, but I often add to my TBR by doing that. So something I really enjoy doing. And I think I found this book by browsing at the bookstore. So I haven't seen anybody else talk about it, but it's called The Book of Lost Hours. And again, this is a historical fantasy. So we're back into my historical fantasy mode. It is a time travel book. The premise of this book is that we have a little girl who is Jewish during the Holocaust, and her father is a timekeeper. And when the soldiers come to collect her family, he sends his daughter into like this time-space continuum, like just this like enigmatic made up world, which is like the source of time and space. Okay. So she's hidden in this made up world that's full of books, and these books are full of memories. And these memories are the memories of people throughout all of time. While she's in there, she sees these men coming in and out of the time space and picking up books and burning some of them and destroying them. And she doesn't understand, like, why are they doing this? Like, these are memories. Like, why would you destroy someone's memories? Like, why would you do this? And so she starts following these men around and sneaking in after they leave and saving these burnt memories. And she's compiling them in her own book. So she's saving all of these memories. She doesn't know why they're being burned, but she has them and she knows they're valuable. And one day, one of these men come into the time space and talks to her, and they strike up a connection. And they start spending time together and having conversations, and they start, having feelings for each other. And just as their relationship is blooming, something goes very terribly wrong in the time space, and it changes everything. We spend the rest of the story following our main character and time hopping between her time and a future time with another character, and following both of their stories until they eventually cross paths and we understand what has happened and what those events in the time-space world did to time and space in the real world where the rest of us live. I love books that are about time travel, and of course I also love historical fiction, historical fantasy, so this was kind of a mix of all of my favorite elements. I really loved this book. I have thought about this book a lot since I read it, and I initially gave it 4.75, but I still keep going back and forth. Like, I could see myself reading it again and ending up giving it a 5-star. It's one of those books, like, you finish it and then you're like, wait, I want to read this again because I want to figure out what I missed. Like, I think there were signs or there were little like clues in there that I didn't catch the first time. So this is a book I will definitely reread in the future. I loved it. The writing was beautiful. There's a lot of really poignant quotes in there. And it also has like sci-fi vibes, right? Because they're like manipulating, I don't know. It's like this whole time manipulation and science. And it's kind of a genre bending book. But if any of those sound good to you, then I would recommend this book. And especially if you like time manipulation or time travel books or time portal books, this is a book that you will want to pick up. I really enjoyed it. The next book I picked up was a reread, and it was A Language of Dragons. I read this last year, and again, this is a YA historical fantasy. You see where I'm going with this, you guys. You can see the mode that I'm in. The sequel came out, and I wanted to read it, but I wanted to brush up on the first book, and it's a YA fantasy. It's a pretty easy read. I really enjoyed it, and so I decided to reread it. It turns out I actually remembered it very well, but I enjoyed my reread. I would recommend it. It's a great YA historical fantasy, and I gave it a 4.25. I think the first time I gave it a solid 4-star. On my reread, I gave it a 4.25. I really enjoyed it. I picked up on some things I didn't pick up on the first time, and I was ready to pick up the second book, and that was The War of Wyverns. Now, I have a caveat before I talk about this book. I was under the impression this book was a duology, and I think initially it was supposed to be a duology, and then the author decided to make it, or the publisher or whatever, decided to make it a trilogy. However, I missed that little tidbit of information. So my rating and experience was affected by the fact that I thought this was the final book and that we were going to be like wrapping things up, when instead it ended up being a middle book of a trilogy. So on a reread, knowing and having proper expectations, I'm sure that I would rate it more highly and enjoy it more. But I just kept thinking, like, where is she going with this? What is going to happen? How are we going to tie this all together? Like, what is even happening with this duology? Like, how is this going to end? I can't figure out how all of these things are going to tie together, with good reason, because in the end, it's a middle book, and it didn't end up tying up any loose ends. It ended up cutting even more. And now I will await the third book. I will definitely be picking up the third book. I ended up rating the second book 4 stars, but again, that's a good rating. I mean, that's a good rating. That's a good book, but I think it might have been higher had I realized I was reading a middle book. I was reading a sequel that wasn't going to be the end of a series. So one of the things I love about this series is that it obviously focuses on language, the importance of language, how language shapes a culture and a society. And I love that. As a bookish person, as a writer, I'm obsessed with language, and I love that whole idea. And at the end of the second book, there's an author's note, and she talks about how a lot of what she wrote about were things that she studied while she was at university. I think she even wrote a thesis on it. It's been a while now since I listened to it, so I might be a little off on that, but it was very fascinating to hear her talk about why she chose to interweave language into the story and why it was so important, and how a lot of the details that she used in this historical fantasy about dragons and wyverns actually relates to real life events and real groups of people throughout history. So I really loved that. And I think that I will want to reread War of Wyverns before the third book comes out. And I think I'll have a better experience when I have better expectations. Nonetheless, 4 stars is an excellent book. I mean, that is a good book. And I would definitely recommend this series if you like YA historical fantasy, or if you in particular like stories about language and culture like I do. In the series, there is a lot of interaction with dragons and wyverns. So, sometimes I know a lot of us love dragon stories. These books feature dragons and wyverns a lot. Like, they are main characters. So if you want a book series where you're actually going to be seeing a lot of the dragons and wyverns, also recommend this series for that. It's really good. Okay. As I mentioned on my last video, I am focused on trying to finish series or catch up on series in 2026, which is why I thought I was finishing up A Language of Dragons when I picked up A War of Wyverns. I'm caught up in the series now. The third book isn't out yet, but I thought I was going to be finishing off a series and being able to mark it off my list, and then that didn't really work out. The next book I picked up is another sequel in a series, and it is Kingdom of Chaos. This is the sequel to Creatures of Chaos that I read. I think I read it last fall, and this is indie published by Julie Hall. This is a YA fantasy, but this one doesn't read like a YA fantasy. I gave the first book 5 stars. Creatures of Chaos was really good. It had my attention through the entire thing. It doesn't really follow the mold of all of the other popular books out right now, so I felt like I was reading something unique and fresh. I loved the main character. I loved the premise of the book. And it ended on a cliffhanger with a plot twist that I didn't see coming. And I really, really liked it. So I was excited to pick up Kingdom of Chaos. Unfortunately, I didn't like Kingdom of Chaos as much as I like Creatures of Chaos, but I did enjoy it. And again, this book does have some like portal travel involved in it. It's a world with lots of different types of creatures. So it's not just like fae or vampires or whatever. Like there's a mixture. There's all kinds of creatures in this book. It's lots of different types of magic. And so that's really fun to read. I really like her writing. And in this series, there's a love triangle. The tension there in the love triangle is very real. There's a lot of angst. There's a lot of yearning. So if you're into that, like young adult, I would say, I think these guys are seniors in high school. So it's like bordering on new adult. There is a lot of questioning throughout it, like which person she's going to end up with. And even by the end of the book, you think you know, and then something happens and you're like, maybe it's not going to go the way that I thought it was going to go. So I believe this is going to be a trilogy. I'm caught up on that series now, and I will pick up the third book. But I really recommend this series if you guys like YA fantasy. Again, just like super easy to follow, not too complex, but entertaining, engaging, fast-paced. Yeah, if you're looking for something like that, I would recommend this series. I ended up rating the second book 4 stars. I think the only difference between the first book, which I rated 5 stars, and the book, which I rated 4 stars, is the setting is very different. We're in a completely different world in the second book, and I think I just enjoyed the world of the first book more. I don't know. I don't know. The world is different, but the writing is still excellent. It was still very engaging, easy to follow, fast-paced. I like the characters. The love triangle is very believable. And I don't know if I'm just in a funk or what, but for whatever reason, I only rated this 4 stars, but 4 stars again is a good book. It's a good book. This was a 4-star month. I had a lot of 4 stars in that range. And those are good books. I just was really hoping for some of them to be 5 stars. And I'm really hoping that March will do that for me. The last book that I read of the month was a really good one to go out on, and it was The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. If you follow me for a while, you might know that I love her writing. I love her books. The Once and Future Witches is one of my favorite books of all time. Highly recommend that book. She also wrote 10,000 Doors of January. She's such a great fantasy writer, and she writes standalone books. So if you're looking for a standalone fantasy novel to read, highly recommend Alex Harrow's books. This is her most recent release, and I was ecstatic that it was about a knight, and it was about time travel. So you guys, this combined 2 of my favorite things. We are following a female knight named Sir Una in the past, and then a soldier from the future who is a historian and writes stories. And their paths cross as they're destined to. I don't want to say too much because I think going into this book blind is going to be the best experience. I didn't really know that much about it besides the fact that it was about a knight. I didn't even realize that it was about time travel, so I'm giving you even more information there. But it's a very unique story. Her writing is beautiful. It's unlike anything else that's out right now. There is so much yearning in this book. It is palpable, and it really is a beautiful story. Just a beautiful story. I loved it. Like with every page, I was drawn into it more. And I could review this book in an entire video and share so many passages. It's just such a stunning read. But if you like the historical fantasy, if you like books about knights with like the medieval vibe, if you like books about time travel and, you know, fated souls that find each other in every lifetime, then I recommend this book. And this book, I keep also teetering between 4.75 and 5 stars. I was really, really distracted at the beginning of this book, and I feel like that overall impacted my experience. I have a feeling that if I reread this book, it will be a 5-star, like a solid 5 stars. But I think I missed a few little details, and that's what happens when I'm distracted. And I have ADHD, but also there's so much going on in the world that like I find myself getting distracted very easily these days. So I guess my little piece of advice to you would be to pay attention, that you want to pay attention from the beginning and pay attention to the details and be very present with this book. But 4.75, I mean, it's basically a 5-star book. So, so good. If it sounds good to you, I would absolutely recommend picking it up. And if you enjoy it, I would recommend picking up her other books because they're all really amazing. Okay, you guys, that is all of the books that I read in the month of February. Tell me in the comments if you've read any of the books that I read, and let me know if you're going to pick up any of these books that I read in February and read them in the month of March. I am going to link my March TBR at the end of this video. So if you haven't watched that yet, go check it out. You can see what I plan to read in the month of March. I have a really good lineup going. I hope you guys are doing well wherever you are. Stay safe, be kind, take care of yourself, give yourself grace. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. We would love to see you at the next one. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys and love you so much. And I will see you very soon. Bye.